Chalo. Hi friends. Yeah, guess what? I'm back with another session as we have already planned. So this will be basic cost concepts. Okay, already we have seen a session based on this concept, but this will be what? Lecture 2. So for your kind information, already we are done with lecture 1. If you have not seen this video, then please see the video of lecture 1. Then you come back to what? Lecture 2. In lecture 1, what we have seen is that we have seen what are direct cost as well as what? Indirect cost. Right, Nana? This is what we have seen in lecture 1. So my advice would be before you try to lock into this particular video, you please try to see that lecture 1 and then come back and see this lecture 2. Okay? Right, guys. Now let's start with this. It is a continuation of the first video. So what we'll do in lecture 2 is we'll be looking into the other cost classification. So here what we are going to do is that we're going to classify cost based on variability with cost object. Now you already know what is cost object, which we have seen in the previous lecture, that is lecture 1. I want to find cost of something, and that something will be what? Cost object. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take cost object. You know that last session we have already seen. Generally cost object will be what, Nana? Output, right? And now I'm going to take a cost and I'm going to compare this cost with output. And based on how the cost changes in relation to the output, I'm going to classify them into three categories. What are they? One will be variable cost, the other one will be fixed cost, and the third one will be semi variable costs. So totally we have got three types of cost: variable, fixed, and semi variable. Right, Nana? Now what is variable cost? It's pretty simple. Any cost that varies proportionately along with the output, we call it as variable cost. So what is the keyword here? Proportionately. This is the keyword. Okay. There are so many examples for that. Let's say material cost is there. Okay, now for example, you need one kg of raw material to manufacture 1 unit of finished good. Okay, let's say you're manufacturing a shirt which is a finished good, and for this shirt you need let's say a cotton, right, Nana? And this cotton, a particular fixed quantity is required for a shirt. Now shirt is the finished good, so if shirt changes, for example the output of shirt changes, like you want to manufacture 50 shirts, then 100 shirts, then 200, then 400, accordingly the cotton consumption also will change in the same way. You get the point? That is the importance of the word proportional. See, many times the students are getting confused that whenever you ask them what is variable cost, they say that variable cost is something that varies along with the output. Now that is not 100% correct answer. It is correct, but it is not exact. Anything that varies with the output is not variable cost, because even semi variable cost also varies along with the output. So what makes variable cost special is it varies with the output proportionately. So proportionately is the keyword. Keep that in mind. Which means, to put it another way, let's say output is one car. This is car one. Okay, and this raw material is a truck, for example. Both are moving. If car, which is the output, for example, if it goes as 100 kilometers per hour, that is a speed, then even truck also should go at what? 100 kilometers per hour. That's what I mean proportionate change, which means their rate of change must be what? Same. If the car is going at 100 kilometers per hour and for example truck moves at 50 kilometers per hour, then I cannot say that it is a proportional change. You understand the point? So then also truck is changing along with the car, but it is not proportional. So this can be a little bit weird example, but anyway, I hope you got the concept now, right? So remember, variable cost changes with the output. Semi variable cost also changes with the output. But what makes variable cost differ from semi variable cost? Variable cost changes with the output proportionally, and semi variable cost changes with the output disproportionately. So that's the basic difference. Now, then it is very easy to answer fixed cost. Variable cost is something which changes proportional with the output. Semi-variable cost is something which changes, but it changes disproportionately along with the output. Then what about fixed cost? It does not change. It remains fixed. It remains constant. It remains constant irrespective of the change in output. The best example is rent. For example, you're running a business of coaching classes. Let's say you're running a business of coaching classes. Now, when you're running a business of coaching classes, or say, for example, there is a college. Now, this is the classroom. For this classroom, you have to pay rent, okay? And you'll be having lots of students here, right, Nana? You'll be having lots of students. Now, let's say what are all the cost you'll incur? You'll have material cost, the book, which you need to give to all the students, right? Then you'll be incurring rent cost. Is what? Then, for example, you are providing bags to all the students, then that also has to be incurred, right? Okay. Now, let's say you have electricity also. Like that, there are so many expenses. Now, what is material? The book. How many students are there? That many materials are needed. For example, 4 students, you need 4 books. 8 students, you need 8 books. 12 students, you need 12 books. So, students is nothing but the output here, okay, which is a finished good. You can presume it that way. Then this material will be what cost, Nana? Variable cost. Because it varies along with the output. 4 students means 4 books. 8 students means 8 books. 12 students means 12 books, right? Then what about rent? Whether it is 4 or it is 8 or it is 12, you have to pay the same rent, right? Suppose if rent is 10,000 rupees, then rent remains the same. It remains 10,000 whether the number of students is 4 or 8 or 12 or 16. So which means rent can be called as what cost, Nana? Fixed cost. Then what about bag? Even bag is also variable cost because depending upon the number of students, you have to go with what? Bag. What about electricity? Because this is on slab rate basis, we can consider that to be semi-variable cost. Why? A fixed slab will be there. Till that time, it remains what? Fixed. Then again, it varies. Again, it remains fixed, and the slab rate also changes. So we can say that it is a good example for what? Semi-variable cost. I hope you got the point, right, Nana? So this is a best example of the variable cost, semi-variable cost, as well as what? Fixed cost. Now, we need to say one more important point over here. Variable cost is something that varies. Okay. And fixed cost is something that remains what? Fixed. And semi-variable cost is something that changes but does not change what? Proportionality along with the output. Isn't it? So that's what we have seen. Now, the biggest question here is when I say variable cost varies, when I say fixed cost remains constant, when I say semi variable cost varies, but it varies disproportionately, I was actually talking about the total. So, which means I'm talking about by default in an implied manner, I was talking about what? Total variable cost. I was talking about total fixed cost and I was talking about total semi variable cost. So when I say variable cost changes along with the output, fixed cost remains constant irrespective of the change in output. Semi-variable cost changes for some time. After that, it remains constant. They're like this. If I'm saying anything, by default, actually, I mean total. So when you talk about per unit, this will exactly change, which means total variable cost changes, but variable cost per unit remains constant. How? Let us go with the previous example. I was talking about the book that you distribute to the students, right? And I said that book is what? Variable cost. Let's say one book cost is 100. If 4 students are there, total cost will be how much? 400. If 8 students are there, total cost will be how much? 800. If 12 students are there, total cost will be how much? 1200. Which means your variable cost is changing in total. But what is the per unit book cost? Here it is 100. Here also it is 100. Here also it is 100. So variable cost per unit, in this case book per student, remains what? Constant. So in total it will change, but per unit it remains constant. Then what about fixed cost? In total it remains what? Constant. Here it changes. In total it remains constant, but Fixed cost per unit, what Nana? Changes. This is very important. Keep this in mind. Fixed cost per unit changes. We'll see the example. It's pretty easy to understand. What is the example of fixed cost that we have seen right now? We have seen rent. And I've said that rent was how much? Let's say 1000 rupees is the rent. This is rent, which is fixed. First, you have 5 students. Then, what is rent per student? What is rent per student? 1000 divided by 5, isn't it? So, how much you get, Nana? 200. Then, if there are 10 students, then what is rent per student? 1000 divided by 10, it will be how much, Nana? 100. You see, here rent per student is 200. Here rent per student is what? 100. So rent is a fixed cost, and fixed cost per unit what, Nana? Changes. But the total rent remains 1000 only, whether it is 5 students or 10 students. But rent per unit of student will what? Change. So these costs, when you try to convert them on per unit basis, exactly they'll show the opposite character. This you keep that in mind. So variable cost in total changes. Variable cost per unit remains constant. Fixed cost in total remains constant. Fixed cost per unit changes. I hope you guys have got it. Semi-variable cost shows a weird behavior that we'll see later. Okay, right. Now come back, Nana. Now what we'll see right now is that we'll see certain graphs which will help us understand what is a variable cost and what is a fixed cost and what is a semi-variable cost. With the help of a graph, we'll try to understand all those things. Okay, right, Nana. So let me erase. Right, chalo. So this is a graph. Okay, so what cost is this? This is fixed cost. Okay, so in this graph, what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to take cost on the y-axis and output or units on what? X-axis. So even the output changes, your cost remains what? Constant, then that is fixed cost. Okay, now I'll take another graph. And what about this one? This is your output. This is your cost. So your output changes. Your cost is also what? Changing proportionately. It is linear. Then you call it as what cost, Nana? Variable cost. Now we'll go with another graph. Okay. Let's go with another graph. Right, guys. Now see here. What about this one? This is semi-variable cost. There are so many different types of semi-variable cost, but this is one of the types. So what is happening here? Initially it is fixed, later it is what? Variable. So we'll see one more example. Let me erase this. But the points you need to really remember, Nana, because these basics are really important for you to solve many other chapters. Because always remember, unless the basics are really strong, there is no meaning in understanding any chapter whatsoever when it comes to costing area. Whether it is marginal costing or standard costing or process costing, or you take any chapter for that matter, it's really impossible for you people to what? Understand. So what is really important is what? The basics that you really learn. I hope you guys are getting me. Otherwise, it's gonna be really, really, really difficult to what? Get into that. Okay, right, Nana. Right. Now see here. We'll go with one more. Now what about this one? This is also semi-variable cost. But what is the difference between this one and the previous one? In the earlier one, I've shown it like this. It was this way, isn't it? So initially fixed, later variable. Here it is what? Initially variable, later it is fixed. But both are what cost? Both are what cost? Nana? Semi-variable cost only. Because neither they are what? Fixed, nor they are what? Variable. If you see, they are showing, showing both the characters. So here it is variable, then it is fixed. Here it is fixed, then it is what? Variable. I'll show you one more. Right, Nana. Now you see this. See it carefully. Even this is also semi-variable cost. Okay. I'll show you one more. Even this is also semi-variable cost. It goes in a zigzag manner. Okay. So all these four are semi-variable cost. All these four. Initially variable, then fixed, initially fixed, then variable, fixed, variable, fixed, variable. Okay. So this is also called as step fixed cost because it looks like steps. Okay. Fixed, variable, fixed. Then you have the zigzag kind of a thing. In this, uh, all these are semi-variable cost. In this particular one is pretty damn important. So we'll try to concentrate more on this. Okay. Just a second. Yeah, this one. Right, Nana. Have a look into this. So what is this? This is called step fixed cost. It's very important. In what way this particular step fixed cost is important? I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a delivery van. When I say delivery van, you have a factory. Okay, you have a factory. Presume that this is factory. You are manufacturing benches. Okay, in the factory. All these benches has to be transported from this factory to what? To the showroom. So let's say this is the delivery van. The capacity of a delivery van should obviously be limited. Let's say 100 benches maximum it can transfer. And the cost of delivery van is putting together everything like driver expenses, diesel expenses, that depreciation, that is everything put together. Per van it is 5,000 for one single van. So what happens? Let's say day one, day one, you have manufactured 50 benches. How many vans you need? You need one van, and the expenditure will be 5,000. Day two, you went with 90 benches. How many vans you need? You need one van, and your expenditure will be 5,000. Day 3, you go with 110 benches. Then one van is not sufficient. Then you need another van. All of a sudden, it will jump from 5,000 to what? 10,000 because you need two vans. Per van, the cost is what? 5,000. Then from 110, if it goes to 200, two vans only. So it remains 10,000. 220, you need three vans. It becomes what? 15,000. I hope you guys are able to understand. So let me show that in this particular graph. Okay, let's try to understand. Now see here. See here. This is output or units on x-axis. This is cost. So 0 to 100. What is the expenditure, Nana? 5,000. Right? 101. It goes all the way to what? 10,000. From 101 to 200, it is how much? 10,000 only. Now 201, it goes all the way to how much? 15,000. You see that? So delivery van expenses is the best example for which cost? Step fixed cost. And step fixed cost is one of the type of semi-variable cost. Of course, there is a debate. Like some people say that the step fixed cost is a separate kind of a category. But anyway, that debate kept aside because costing is not a law. Okay, so everybody has got their own opinion. So there is no hard and fast rule when it comes to costing. That's what makes this particular subject open-minded. So keep this in mind. There are no hard and fast rules when it comes to costing. So costing is always open for interpretation, and everybody based on their own logics and their own analysis, their own perspective, they'll have their own opinion with respect to costing. Okay, but having said that, this is the best example for step fixed cost. And remember, step fixed cost is pretty damn important. Okay, when we go for some other chapters, you'll try to understand what is the importance of step fixed cost. But as of now, I hope you understood this concept. You get the point? Right. Okay, Nana. So before we get with this session, so let me briefly uh, revise everything that we have seen. So what we have seen in this session, guys, based on variability, we have classified cost into what? Variable, fixed, and then what, Nana? Semi-variable. So what is variable cost? Any cost that varies proportionately along with the output, we call it as what cost? Variable cost. And any cost that remains constant irrespective of the change in output, we call it as what? Fixed cost. And any cost that shows both the characters of variable and fixed, we call it as what? Semi variable cost. Or any cost that varies disproportionately along with the output, we call it as what? Semi variable cost. Then we have seen that all this character of variable cost changing, fixed cost remaining constant, all these things applies to what? Total cost. Okay. So, but when it comes to cost per unit, it is exactly opposite. For example, variable cost in total changes. Variable cost per unit remains constant. Fixed cost in total remains constant. Fixed cost per unit changes. I hope you guys have got it. Then we have seen different graphs, how a graph looks like as per variable cost. We'll just try to revise it once. Okay. So for example, this is the graph. What is this, Nana? Fixed cost. One more graph. What is this? Variable cost. One more graph. What is this? Semi-variable cost. Initially variable, later fixed. I'll go with one more. What is this? Semi-variable cost. Initially fixed, later variable. And I'll go with one more. What about this one, Anna? This is also what? Semi-variable cost, but it is zigzag. And one more type of semi-variable cost is there, and that is a step fixed cost, which we have seen here. And we try to understand that also. We have seen an example that, what is the example, Anna, that we have seen? Delivery van expenses. You get the point, right? So, so that's what, with respect to which one? Yeah, basics of all these things. So we have seen a particular cost classification in this video, that is classifying cost into variable, fixed, as well as what? Semi variable. It's a very important topic, Nana, that's why I've spent enough time on it. And thank you guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have really enjoyed and you like this particular classes, then please subscribe to my channel. So that would really encourage me to do much more videos which will really help you guys. uh, and After this, we'll be having another session where I'll be talking about explicit cost, implicit cost, opportunity cost, all these things, okay, which will be really helpful, guys. So stay tuned to the channel, you subscribe so that you'll be getting all the updates first. So I'll try to upload videos every alternative day possible so that you'll continuously you'll be getting videos, and that will really help you to write all your exams and all. I really hope this initiative taken by me is helping you guys. Thank you so much, and please comment below so that I'll try to know how you guys feel about the classes. Thank you guys. Have a nice day.